and we will be talking about this evening about English only in monolingual classrooms. So this is obviously a problem you may have encountered having students who speak the same native language whilst trying to teach them English and trying to keep them in English without reverting back into their native language. This follows on nicely from the webinar last week where we looked at gamification, because we can do some games within the activity to ensure that students do keep speaking English in the classroom. Um, so without further ado, we will continue with the webinar.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Ruth. It's lovely to see so many of you joining us today. As usual, you will receive our certificate of participation and a webinar handout. So you don't need to take screenshots. You will receive the handout in the next few days. If you do not receive it, please email us at formazione@mlaworld.com and we'll make sure you get the certificate and the handout. The handout will contain all the important information from this webinar plus useful links and any worksheets shown in this presentation.
Let us know in the chat if you've not received a certificate from the past few weeks. We've obviously been very busy with the convention, so if you've not received a webinar, not received a certificate from last week's webinar, just let us know in the chat, and we can follow up with that. So, as I mentioned at the outset, today we'll be looking at strategies and games in the classroom to keep students in English in a monolingual classroom. So this is a common challenge, and it's very tempting for students to revert to their native language or R1 in a monolingual classroom because it's easier for communication. They can clarify things with each other a lot easier, a lot quicker, a lot more efficiently in their native language. But the idea of being in an EFL classroom is to speak English. So we need to think of strategies to try and um, remove that temptation from them to speak their native language. So what we'll do, we'll look at classroom routines, okay, expectations, things like that, and some quick strategies that you yourself can do as the teacher, okay. Looking at games, like I said, following on from last week, we can look at games within the activities to capture the students' interest and to keep them actively participating in English. And then these are all good. What we're about to show you are all good for kind of easy wins, so quick fixes, or developing long-term habits to embed into your lessons. And you will hopefully leave with the practical tools ready to implement into your classrooms from tomorrow, potentially.
Sorry, Luke, have you just talked about the objectives?
No, not yet. No.
Okay, lovely. So, what we're hoping today is that by the end of this session, teachers will be better able to use a range of motivating activities that encourages students to choose speaking English in class. We would like to help you build classroom habits that support consistent English only interaction and also adapt games and techniques so that every learner can participate confidently in English in your classes.
Okay, so the first thing we need to do as teachers really is to establish the right kind of environment and set those expectations in the classroom. So this can be done, or maybe should be done, at the start of every semester, okay? At the start of every school year, after the Christmas break, after the Easter break, when the students come back, they've had their summer holidays, their Christmas or their Easter breaks. They kind of need to be reprogrammed into learning. So setting those expectations um, at the beginning of the semester and maybe at the beginning of every class as well, especially with EFL classrooms. Um, the students may need to be reminded more frequently than in other subjects that they need to stay in English, okay? And we can do this verbally, we can do it with signs on the wall, and there are a few other things that we can do as well, which we will go into.
It's just
Um,
interesting, isn't it? Look, how, we take for granted that our
mhm,
students know exactly what we
mhm.
expect from them.
Yeah,
And sometimes they really do not know, or they're not sure. It's when you talk about behavior and they say,
mhm,
oh, you expect me to be a good student. So what does that mean
yeah,
exactly? So
mhm,
that is the same thing with English only, isn't it? It's like, oh, you expect me to speak English at all times, even
mhm.
though my partners here, my classmates, speak the same language as I do.
Yep.
So it is good to remind them because they're never sure, are they?
Mhm. No, exactly, and it only benefits them, right? If they're using English, they're in an English classroom, they need to use the language that they're supposed to be learning, right? And then it comes from us as teachers, okay? So as Ruth just mentioned, like we expect the students to use English, so we as teachers, as the role model in the classroom, should be using English only as well. If we know the student's native language, and we start using their native language, then they will think that it's okay for them to use it. So this is obviously not the point of an English classroom. So we need to set that example and use English exclusively in the classroom as well. And make the classroom like an inclusive environment, okay, where we welcome mistakes, we can work through mistakes together as a class, um, with peer learning and peer coaching aspects of learning a language. And mistakes are normal, okay? They happen in any educational subject, but they shouldn't be feared. When somebody makes mistakes, it means that they're trying to navigate through the language in EFL teaching and trying to apply the language in the best way. So even if there are mistakes, the students are showing that they have the confidence and but yeah, the confidence to practice the language. So working through mistakes is good and mistakes are welcome in the classroom. Obviously, we can get rid of those fossilized mistakes and try and kind of navigate through those. But yeah, mistakes are welcome, and the teacher needs to be a role model by setting those expectations. Anything to add, Ruth?
Absolutely. Also, look, I mean, if we ask our students to use English only, we're
Mhm.
asking them to make mistakes. There's
Mhm.
no other way to learn, is there? So, we're asking for trouble. That's exactly what we want them to do. We want them to make as many mistakes as possible
Mhm.
until they get it right or they get
Yeah.
it better. Because better is also okay. So,
Mhm.
let's try and change our perspective on mistakes so that they can feel confident enough to practice and make them.
Absolutely.
Right,
Okay.
so let's talk about what we can do as teachers. Important aspects, for example, if we are using English only in the classroom,
Sorry.
we definitely have to grade our language, okay? Even if we speak the student's native language, we going to communicate in English and we need to make it simple. We need to simplify speech. We need to rephrase our sentences. So, there is this theory that students are able to read and listen to higher level English that they're able to produce. Okay, so our speech needs to be a little bit higher, okay, in terms of level, but not too high so that it's unattainable, that students do not understand. Okay. Now, what happens? Sometimes there are communication breakdowns. We can't be sure that our students understand what we're saying. For that, we've got our typical ICQs, always check that they understand what we're saying. But again, how can we get our message across? So we can tell them now or later. We can use gestures. We can use visual aids. We can show them what we want them to do. We can use videos with to make it visual so that they know. Repetition, repeat it. It's okay. We need to be patient. Everybody needs to be patient when they're trying to speak only the language they're learning. And rephrase it. Just make it simple. That's another good tip. You've said it in a way that nobody understands. And it's like, oh, there is no person here who can understand. Okay? So you have to rephrase it and make it very, very simple to help comprehension. Now, using authentic material and songs, videos, things that can pique the students' interests and make the learning context more relevant to them will always help. They will feel that motivation to continue speaking English. Okay. And something very, very important is since we are welcoming mistakes in this sort of setting, we're also welcoming good language. And for them to build confidence, we need to celebrate that progress. We need to tell them all the time, well done, thanks for trying. I don't know if you've experienced this, Luke, but for me in class, when I actually tell them what they're doing well, when I ask them to speak English and I use games and they do it,
Hmm.
then that's when I actually say, thank you, guys. Thank
Hmm.
you. It's been great. You know, you've done a great job. You've really helped me and you've helped yourselves. You're learning more.
Yep.
And obviously, when they're speaking, you ask them to speak English only. And there are loads of mistakes there and loads of good language. It is a good idea for us to monitor, go around the classroom, online, face to face, go around the classroom, and then just take notes of all the language. Feedback, they will want your feedback. They will want to know whether they've done it well or not. And good things and things that need to be improved without singling out.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Just a few things to add, Ruth. I think grading language, as you said, is important. Not speaking too high so they can't under the students can't understand, but I also think speaking slightly slower as well. So just above the level of the students' current abilities, but also slightly slower than kind of regular speech, just so it gives them slightly more time to comprehend what's being said. Okay. And then authentic materials, like we said, kind of like songs or videos to pique interest. But also, this relates back to kind of what we mentioned last week with gamification. If you can make a Quizlet quiz or a Kahoots quiz in English to kind of to start them off. Again, this, in my experience, generally gets the students quite excited because they're playing a game at the start of the lesson. It's quite fun, but they're using the target language immediately in a fun way where they may not completely understand that they're using it exclusively and thus learning all of the time. And then yeah, with feedback, um, if there are multiple students making the same type of mistake, addressing those as a whole class, not individualizing those mistakes is obviously desired, but then also allowing the students to work through those mistakes together. As I mentioned briefly earlier, kind of peer teaching works quite well, and peer coaching. So that's just those are a few more things that I would add to that. So as I mentioned, we're going to look at a few games. So the first one is the English meter game or a live progress bar. So how it works, it's fairly self-explanatory by the diagram or the picture, as you can see. So you draw a progress bar, not too dissimilar to this one that's projected onto the screen. And whenever you hear the students using English for a sustained period of time in their pair or in their group, you shade in a bit of the bar. Okay. The longer they're speaking English, the more of the bar gets filled in. And if you've got multiple groups, which you probably will, and 4 or 5 bars, there will be a little bit of a competition, and thus the students will then want to speak English for longer because they will want to be the team that's in the lead. So this keeps the students speaking English for longer than maybe they would otherwise. And then the students who do speak the most English in that particular task or activity, you give them a small reward, right? So in the next lesson, it could be they get to pick the warm-up activity. At the end of the lesson, if you're doing memes, and like making a caption for a meme, they get to select the meme, or even maybe that group gets a 2 minute break in the middle of the class whilst the other students are still learning. This will motivate the students to speak English for as long as possible. And reasons why this works is that teenagers, young learners generally like games, which we spoke about last week, but there is visible progress, right? Without being called out individually, but then also without the lesson being stopped to say, well done. Like if the students are in the middle of their flow, in the middle of their task, and you go and scribble on their bar that they're like a lot of their bar is getting covered in because they're speaking a lot of English, they will visually be able to see that they are doing well in this particular task with speaking English, and you won't need to stop them mid-flow to congratulate them. They will see that you've recognized that by their bar being filled.
And they
Um,
also want to know, don't they?
mhm.
Sometimes they just get carried away. Will we
Yeah.
actually set up communicative activities, a good context? They start getting carried away. That's what we want.
Mhm.
And sometimes they really don't know because they're making that effort, that thinking effort. So they don't know whether they've used a lot of English
Yeah.
or just a little bit. And it is
Mhm.
good to remind them. And they can take that and take responsibility for it.
Definitely. And then, sorry, just a quick one. It only takes 2 minutes to set up, right? If you can even set this up um, before the students arrive. If you know how many students are in the class, you know how many groups you're going to have. You can have the bars on the board before the students come into class, and then all you need to do once you put them once you put them into their groups, um, you can allocate them a particular bar, and then that's it. So it's super quick, super easy, very visual, really, really good for the students to kind of monitor their own progress and for you to display the progress that they're making. Second
Right.
game.
Second game is called Secret Spies. This is one of my favorite games. Because, sometimes teachers, we are the cops, we are police,
Mhm.
right? So we're there to check who's speaking English, who isn't, and it's like police patrol all the time. So what we do with these games and activities is to actually put the responsibility on them, right? They're going to be responsible for it. And this is very simple as well. I mean, I usually do it with a hat when I'm in the classroom and I have like pieces of paper with nothing on them or spy. Okay, so it depends on the number of students you have. You could have two, you could have four. So you have language spies per lesson. Nobody knows who the language spy is, okay? But they are in charge of checking who's speaking more English, who's speaking less English, okay? But the idea here is to make it to avoid the punishment side of it. So it's just to praise them. So you ask the spies to take a note of who speaks most English. And it's not about errors. It's not about how well they get it. It doesn't matter. It's about attempting. Okay? Again, we welcome mistakes. We encourage them to use English. So we just want them to use it. Can you go back, please, Link?
Yep, sorry.
Lovely. No problem. So it's just about how much English they have spoken. And then at the end, the spies say, hey, it was me and it was this person and that person. We have like, I don't know, top two, top three, who are the three students who spoke most English, and then give them a small reward. Something that works well for me as well in class is we're going to play a song, okay?
Mhm.
So in the next lesson, maybe while you're working together, while you're doing your activities, while you're doing a task. So the winners get to choose which are the three songs that we'll be playing.
Bruce, quick
And
question. Oh, sorry, continue.
yeah, go for it.
Uh, quick question. just out of curiosity. Can the spies pick themselves if they've produced really good English during the lesson, or
No, not allowed.
they can't pick
That's why it
themselves?
rotates.
Okay. Do the spies? So let's say, for example, you've got two spies in the classroom. Do they know who the other spy is? Okay. So
No,
the other spy could nominate one spy, and that's okay.
that is not a problem at all.
Okay. Cool. Just.
Now, I think the difficult thing, the challenge for them is to go around the class and pay
Hmm.
attention to everybody.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it also activates the listening skills. They're
Hmm.
going to have to pay attention and listen and check what others are doing. And as
Hmm.
you said earlier, Luke, there's something very valuable in peer interaction, peer
Hmm.
observation. It is very important for them to collaborate with each other.
Yeah.
Again, it gamifies awareness and there's no punishment because it's about who did it the most.
Cool. Good. So the next game we've got is Emoji Economy or Token Trader, whichever you prefer. So this is where, sorry, just there we go. Each group, so the students are in groups or in pairs again, and they are given three tokens, okay? And they lose a token if they stop trying in English, not for errors. Okay, so whereas we just saw that good English is rewarded if the students are I don't want to say lazy, but if they're not motivated to speak English and they're not trying in the classroom, they will get a point or a token taken off them. Okay. So the idea is that the students will keep speaking in English. Okay. Even if there are errors, if the effort is there and the motivation is there, then that's absolutely fine. It's just we will lightly punish by removing tokens from groups, from students um, who don't want to try in this particular class. However, always reward good use of English or good effort in English. So if the students are asking for help in English, if they're rephrasing sentences, maybe they've asked us as teachers a question, we haven't quite understood their meaning, so they've rephrased their question in a different way. We would reward that, obviously. Negotiating meaning and completing a task fully in English are ways also for the students, for the groups to increase their token counts. And then at the end, obviously, as always, there is a privilege, there's a reward, a small reward or privilege. And it could be similar to what Ruth has already mentioned. So maybe choosing music to tidy up or to play in the next lesson. Can choose a vocabulary game.
Sorry to interrupt, Luke. We've got a
Sorry,
good
yeah.
question here. Christina is asking, can they obtain more than 3 tokens per group then? I think so. I think that the answer is yes, right?
I would say
How
yes.
many do they start with,
They
Luke?
they start with three,
Okay,
and then if they're not trying, if there's no effort, you can remove them. But if you can remove them from the group, but if a group is showing particular efforts and doing these things that are on the screen, so asking for help in English or completing a task fully, they will then get more. So it's almost like I don't know. I guess how many tokens you buy depends how many that they can get in total. But I mean, every
absolutely.
group starts with three, and they can be reduced down or they could be elevated up depending on
Exactly. And
how
the
many.
group that has more tokens is the one that gets a reward. Now,
Yes.
she's also asking whether you would do this per group or per person. No interruption, Christina. All your comments and questions are welcome. I wouldn't do it per person particularly. I don't know
Mm,
about you, because I
no.
think it is good to feel that co-responsibility in the group, because
Yep.
they are supposed to be talking together
Hmm.
and it's a group effort. Imagine if the other members of the group are not making the effort, how could that other person, that singular person, get more tokens? This person has nobody to talk to Okay, so I would do it in a group. That's, I don't know if you think the same, Luke.
I think the same because you have that kind of external pressure and you have more, there's a greater sense of accountability, okay? Because you're working with somebody else and um they may be trying and using English as much as they can, and if you are not putting in as much effort, then it's not fair on your fellow partner, on your fellow group members. So I would avoid doing it individually because it adds a sense of responsibility, external pressure, and accountability really from other peers, right? So yeah, like I said, like I was saying, sorry, the reward again can be something like music, vocabulary game, um, a little break, something like that. And then sorry, why do teens like it? It's competitive without being too childish, okay?
It's not
Especially with
childish, you're right.
yeah, especially with I was going to say with like older teenagers from kind of 14, 15 and above, you've got to be a little bit more cognizant that they're a bit more mature and the game can't look too childish. So I think this works quite well. So the next game we've got, Ruth.
The noise of English game. I don't think this is for everyone, but I really like it. I love noisy classrooms.
Mhm.
Roberta is saying that her 18-year-old students love getting stickers. It is brilliant. I love that. I love when they're that age. And then
Mhm.
when they actually grow up and they are 15 or 16, it's like, who are you taking me for? But they still want the
Mhm.
points, don't they? They
Mhm.
still want us to pay attention and praise them and acknowledge their effort. It's just that the stickers don't work anymore when they are older, which is a shame. Right, so these classes I particularly like noisy, leery classrooms. Okay, that means everyone's talking as long as it's in English, and they love being able to talk loud. And the problem is that they don't want to do it in English. So it's like, okay, I can get all this, like, release all this energy in the classroom as long as it's in English. Okay.
Mhm.
So it depends on the level of your students, obviously, the number of students you have in class. Some of you have quite, like, very numerous classrooms,
Mhm.
I would say. But 4 6 minutes of group work. Okay, they have whichever activity you've set up. It could be a debate, it could be a task, it could be creating sentences out of vocabulary, any task within the context of your lesson. This is what we wanted to do, by the way, with all the games. We wanted to give you games and ideas that you could use with what you are currently teaching. Okay, you don't have to teach this. This is part of your lesson. Okay, so there is a task, there is a name to the lesson, and you want them to speak English. So these are tips we're giving you to use within your class. Okay,
Mhm.
so timer for 6 minutes depends on the level. I think 6 is a long time. I would keep it to 4. Lower levels, 3 minutes is a
Mhm.
lot for them. And then you're near them, you're going around and you listen for English and you're asking them to be loud because you need to hear that English. If you can't hear it, you're not going to actually give them the point. You have to, it's like, keep it coming. I need to be able to hear it. So it needs to get louder and louder. And the fact that they're going to get loud and they have the opportunity to do this is going to encourage them to do it. And again, there's no penalty here, there's no punishment. It's only positive reinforcement. I don't think more than 6 minutes of a very noisy class is is bearable for us either. But they tend, teenagers tend to speak more because that volume element is part of the game and they're never allowed to be loud.
Mhm.
What do you think of this one, Luke? Would this be something
I
you would
like
feel comfortable with?
I like it to an extent. I think it depends how loud the classroom is, to be honest. I prefer a quieter classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Nonetheless still fun. But no, I think this is good. It's not something I've used a huge amount, to be honest, but I can understand how it would work. Like I say, maybe because I prefer my classrooms slightly more quieter. But I mean, even still, if the classroom is still quiet, you still want the students to produce in English. You're still walking around the classroom and monitoring the the language that they're using in their groups, right? So it's not the classroom being really loud is not a prerequisite. It's not necessary, but I think it could make it a bit more fun, to be honest. I agree. But you could also in quieter classrooms still adopt the same kind of approach and monitor the monitor the students in a quieter, calmer way. But
Sure. Yeah, it's just I think it's my taste.
yeah.
Um, let's recap a little bit. Do you
Hmm.
actually use any of these games and techniques? We
I
talked about the meter bar, right?
mhm. I've used
Secret spies. Let's remind our audience here. So the bar that you write on the board and you draw on the
mhm.
board, secret spies, the
Yep.
tokens,
Hmm.
and the noise of English games so far. Have you used any of these techniques,
I've
games in your
used
classes?
I've used
Please let us know in the chat.
oh sorry. I personally have used the meter bar or I guess a version of the tokens or the counters, the emoji tokens I've used before. And I've used both of the activities or games that we've got coming up. But Noise of
Lovely.
English, I've not used a huge amount, and Secret Spies, I've not used, but I do like the sound of that.
Good.
Okay, so these next two I guess, activities are for more kind of structured speaking exercises. So this one is quite similar to the one that we just looked at. So stay in English challenge. So you again set up a timer. You give students a set amount of time. Okay, like Ruth said in the previous slide, less time for lower level students. Maybe 7 minutes is probably the maximum you would give even for higher level students in their groups or in their pairs. Okay. You give the students points. Okay. So everybody starts on 0 or starts on 5 or starts on 3. You can be creative and set the points up how you wish. Okay. And then the students are awarded extra points for using more complex language or using new vocabulary in the task that they're doing. Okay. So if you've given students some new vocabulary in the warm up or in the lead in to the main task, and they use some of that vocabulary whilst they're completing the task. That's brilliant because that's the language that we've given them. So you can award extra points for the use of the language elements that we've given them. Also
Sorry,
for
Luke, do they have to use it correctly or do they have to attempt it?
attempt it.
Good.
It's not about using it absolutely perfectly. It's having the confidence and the desire to use the language that we give them. So it's not about being perfect first time you've introduced a piece of vocabulary or a grammar structure. It's about attempting and kind of navigating through the language. You can have a visual timer projected onto the board as well. Okay, so the students know how long that they have been speaking for, or you can always have the timer going down, and then they know how long they've got left to speak. You can do that either way. I usually find it better to come down than to go up in time because it keeps the time is more structured in that way. Okay, if I set a timer for 5 minutes, counting down, the students know that they've once it hits 0, they have to stop. Whereas if I get distracted and the timer's going up, um, they could get some extra time, which we need to keep the timings of the activities still quite tight. And this is quite important, I would say, like because it does have a sense of jeopardy. So like the students can get deducted points for similar reasons as we've mentioned before. If they're not even attempting to use the new language or the new vocabulary that we've given them, they can get deducted points. But then if they do, if they realize that and then start using the language, then they can gain points. Okay, so it's kind of a way of reminding the students that you want them to use these particular language elements that you've given them in the lesson for them to use to practice. And if they're not using them, then they will have points taken off them. But if they do start using it, then they'll get points added. So it's not about using the language perfectly or even well when you first introduce a grammar structure, but it's about putting in the effort to use the language that's being given. Um, so
Someone has
this,
said that that's a great idea. I also think so
cool,
because
good.
it basically gives them a purpose to use a
Mhm,
language, and
mhm.
if they want to do it, they will remember more as well. So there's always like a knock-on effect that is very
Exactly.
positive, right?
Yeah, and because we're rewarding like more complex or new vocabulary, sorry, more complex language or new vocabulary, then it's encouraging the student to kind of extend and develop their language. They're not just using the grammar structures that they know. They're trying to attempt a more complex, a more advanced level of English, which is obviously what we want for our students, right? If everybody just spoke in the
Absolutely.
present simple all of the time, then that would be like not brilliant for everybody, for the students and for the teacher, right? So we're encouraging more advanced language, and then if you set a timer, you can see again which team speaks English for the longest amount of time, which is obviously
And
adds a
they
little
love
bit of
having a timer, don't they?
timers are good.
They want to see it. They want to see when the
Definitely.
time is over,
Yeah.
how long they have left. And they always, the beginning they complain because they think it's a lot. And then,
Hmm.
once you've got into the habit of using the timers, they start thinking, hey, I'm going to make the most of these bits that I have left.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
then my time's going to be up in a minute. So I'm going to use it. This is
Hmm.
about like creating habit. That's what we were talking about earlier, isn't it?
Hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Let's move on
Okay,
to the
moving on to the
next.
next one. Yep. So this one is always quite fun, I think. So we're looking at Debate Dash. So it's just a silly little name, but it's basically setting up a debate in the classroom. So obviously, depending on your classroom size, you would set up students into two teams, or if you've got a larger class, you could do four teams, I suppose, and then have the two teams debating each other and then rotating the teams. But ideally, for a smaller class, two teams, the class is split in half. A round lasts 3 minutes, so the students have to formulate an argument for or against something. Um, and yeah, they have a debate. Somebody argues for the motion, then there's somebody from the other team responds, and they go back and forth for those 3 minutes. And then again, points are rewarded for the use of English, not just the validity of the argument. Okay, so again, it's about effort. It's about maybe applying English in a more accurate way when we're talking about debates. Debates are generally done with more advanced students because debates use more slightly more formal language. There's a bit more of a structure that you're formulating an argument when you're debating or a counter argument. So we can reward points or tokens or however you want to reward for the use of English as well. Okay, so the argument may not make sense to your eye, but if the use of English, if the actual language itself makes sense, then that's fine. Okay, we can look at the validity of the argument later, but we're looking at the use of English. That's what we want in an English classroom. Um, and then they can lose points if they repeat the same sentence. Okay, so we want them again to kind of extend their language to be more elaborate. Okay, to experiment maybe a little bit. So they can't just start um, every sentence or every point with the same comments because this is quite frequent, right? Even with native speakers of English or of any language, we would generally start arguments in the same way. So getting students to kind of address a point in different ways is good. Um, so the reason why debates for me are fun but are important, the students begin to understand that they're using English with more intention, okay, because they're formulating something that others need to understand and either agree with or disagree with, okay? So you're not just coming out with a sentence like the sky is blue, okay? You'll come out with reasons why the sky is blue, okay? And this is about using the language more kind of intentionally and in a way that is developing, I guess, critical thinking skills as well as language application, as well as language comprehension as well. And then this is why it works quite well because the students are developing these skills, comprehension and response time as well. What's difficult in language learning is being able to respond to somebody when they've spoken to you in that language. This is something that a lot of people struggle with. So this situation is a safe environment, hopefully a fun environment, that the students can practice this kind of comprehension response time relationship in the target language. So yeah, and debates are generally pretty fun in my
They're
experience.
fun, and it's that element of critical thinking is
Mhm.
really important as well. Now that we're
Yeah.
stuck to technology all the time and everything is mediated. I've got a question for you.
Go on.
Roberta has asked a very interesting question.
Okay.
Have you ever used, Luke, the Mission Impossible timer? It looks like a fuse that is burning and then explodes when time's up.
I have not, no.
I haven't, and I've just
No.
looked it up. I've just gone on YouTube. It's amazing. She says it's
Nice.
fantastic and kids love it.
Cool.
It not just younger kids. I love it. I'm definitely going to use that one. We can project it at the end
Cool.
because I've got it ready.
Perfect. Good.
Um,
Anything else?
yes. We have Barbara saying that she would like to learn a few things. We do run webinars every Thursday,
Mhm.
and they are all recorded, Barbara. So they are on our YouTube channel. If you look at MLA webinars, there are loads of webinars that you can actually, navigate, watch. They're not very long, and they might be useful to learn different tips about different ways of how to introduce English in your lessons. She's a PE teacher.
Okay.
It is interesting. We do have something about Cleo as well. So
Mhm.
please go on YouTube and search for different webinars that you may find useful.
I think if you go onto YouTube and in the search bar MLA World, our channel comes up and all of the webinars are on there. So you'll find loads of webinars on different aspects. So just to conclude,
Right,
uh, we-
so we've come to an end. It's been short, long. I don't know. Let's see how you felt it. So basically, what we wanted to stress at the end is that it's basically what we've been talking about. So setting clear expectations is key. We can't assume that students are fully aware of what we expect. So just do that from the very beginning. It takes 1 minute. You can even ask them, so what language do you need to speak here? And they will say English, and then they'll just get into it if you give them the right, a variety of games and activities. Now, that brings me to the second point: maintaining student motivation and engagement through relevant and purposeful communicative activities. Students need a purpose to talk and a purpose to listen. So games work really well for that because they have to do something because they need to gain something. So they have a purpose to listen to the partner and a purpose to speak. That is very, very important. Otherwise, why would you engage in conversation? Now, again, games, they're a fun purpose to communicate, but they also raise awareness of how much they're using English. And, it increases their commitment to keep it in English in class. They will
Mm.
see, well, today we haven't done that well. And then some other time they will, see that bar there. They will see how many tokens they have, and they will go, hey, we did really well today. Then, very important, even if you speak the native language of your monolingual class, of your students' language, be a model and communicate in English only. It is very important to set an example, and of course, it's easier to get our message across in the students' L1, but it also shows them that it is doable, that you can do it, and you've worked hard. They see that you are trying, so they will try as well. And then when they understand and they land in English, and they see that they've been able to understand, they feel very proud of themselves, and that boosts their confidence. And we need to foster a positive classroom environment. Let's be tolerant and patient with mistakes. It is great if they make mistakes. That's wonderful because that means they're using the language, and only through practice they're going to be improving. They're going to get better. Right. Any suggestions of upcoming webinars? We welcome your ideas, so please let us know if you would like to learn about something specific. Pop them in the chat, and we'll make sure that we create a webinar for you. Luke, would you like to wrap up?
Okay. Yeah, no problem. So again, thank you everybody for your time and attention this Thursday evening. You will receive a certificate of participation tomorrow, hopefully. If you don't, please email formazione@mlaworld.com. If you don't receive it by next week, and like Ruth said at the outset, the handout you receive will contain worksheets, activities, links from this webinar. Join us next week where we are looking at pronunciation and intonation. So thank you once again, and have a good Friday tomorrow, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for your comments. It's been
Thank you.
great.
Bye. Bye bye.